I talked about how some people have been asking me to give my testimony lately, and now I've been asked for my testimony at the church where I work in connection with a psalm that I saw once in a dream. The words Psalm 50 were written on the side of a pole in one dream that I had, and so I'm gonna go to church and get this done, and I'll see you guys. It is a cold day today. Good morning. It's freezing outside today, but it's a beautiful day. The church that I work at has been doing interviews with different people from the congregation, and in relation to the Psalms. And we were talking about it one day, and I said, God gave me a psalm in a dream once, and then I said it was Psalm 50, and they said, oh, we'll look and see if that's one of the psalms of the series, because they had all the psalms picked out, and then I got an email later saying, you won't believe this, Psalm 50 is the last psalm of the series. So I'm on my way to do the interview and praying that God will guide it and that He'll be glorified. There's been so much happening lately. God is just guiding in wonderful ways, and we're really excited about some developments that may be coming up soon. So I just want to urge everybody to surrender their lives to God at this time, because it's a very scary time, and without God, I think we could really self-destruct. We could really lose our bearings. But with God, we can trust that no matter what happens, He is taking care of us. He said He'll never leave us or forsake us. And we are, we don't know what the future holds on this earth for each individual person. But we know the plans that God has made for us. And His plans are to give us life and joy and peace and love forever. It's an amazing future that we all have to look forward to. So I just want to encourage you guys to keep going strong and not to lose your faith, because God is bigger than all of us. God is the creator of every single particle of matter, and He can put it all together. The Bible is full of promises that He will do that He's going to renew this earth, and the valley of dry bones is coming to life again. So it's just so much evidence. The trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall rise. So the dead in Christ shall rise, but Christ has taken over authority over the earth. So, yeah, it's a chilly kind of day, but good things are going to happen.
friends, during this worship series, God is Holding Your Life, we've been so blessed with hearing testimonies from members of the congregation. This is our last week with this series, and Denise Grant is going to offer her testimony today. Denise, our congregation knows you as our talented music director, a fabulous pianist, and a powerful and beautiful singer. And you have blessed us so much as our music director.
Thank you. I have been blessed to be your music director.
One of the things that I love about you is how your faith undergirds all of those other gifts that you give us. I think really your faith is your most amazing gift of all, and your deep love of God, which shows through all of the other gifts. So we're so grateful that you're here today to share something of your faith and how you've experienced God holding your life.
Thank you for that opportunity.
One of the things we learned when the pandemic started is that you're also an amazing videographer and video editor. So
I'm just a passionate amateur.
Well, it's been just a blessing each week to see what comes out in the worship video. And you just created another music video, and we're going to hear you singing a little bit later in the stairwell. Some people have been wanting to see what that's like, and
yeah.
We're going to hear you singing My Life Flows On in Endless Song. And each of the verses of that song ends with the question, how can I keep from singing? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I wonder if you could start off by telling us about the role of singing in your life, in your early years, and the time when you weren't singing.
Yeah, as I was growing up, my parents paid for us to take piano lessons. That was our thing, piano lessons. We sang hymns. I came from a Christian family. But it wasn't until my family moved to Toronto that I started taking singing seriously.
How old were you then?
I was 15 when I moved to Toronto, and I didn't speak much English, so my parents put us in a church boarding school, and because I didn't speak much English, they placed me in all the arts classes. I didn't take any science classes because I couldn't understand. So it just happened that there was an incredible choir there with a very good choir director. If you recall, the first Good Friday service that we had, there was this choir singing there. And
on our video last
video,
year.
Yeah, that was a choir that was directed by my old choir director from this boarding school. So I was really blessed with a place that had a good music program. That's where I started singing, and I took voice lessons. And then when I went to college, I got a double degree, a bachelor's in piano and singing.
Was that in Toronto as well?
No, that was in Walla Walla, Washington. The irony of the story is that Walla Walla was a Seventh-day Adventist college, and my parents really wanted me to get a Christian education all the way through. But the irony of that story is that as soon as I left the college, I became an atheist and left God. And
is there something that precipitated that decision on your part?
Yes, I wanted my freedom. I wanted freedom to do whatever I wanted, because it felt like religion was just a lot of do's and don'ts. Yeah, it wasn't like that for everybody, but in a general tone, that's what it felt like.
And I think that's a common journey for many people who grow up in Christian homes, just wanting to know what life is like on my own. Exactly.
And we find out.
You found out.
I found out.
Yeah. Tell us some more.
Okay, well, after my bachelor's, singing a lot with choirs and doing recitals and a lot of singing, we went to Russia with the choir as part of the Friendship Ambassadors program at that time. Russia was still a communist country in 1982. Anyway, after I finished college, I became an atheist, and then I decided that I really wanted to get a master's, and I applied for a school where there was a teacher that I wanted to study piano with, and that was in DeKalb, Illinois. But my family was quite poor because my father was a pastor and my mother wasn't working, and my father had about $700 to take me to college with. I was headstrong on doing it, so he was very concerned, but when we got there, I paid my tuition, which was $400. and we had 300 left. We got there on a Thursday or a Friday, and my father was going to leave after the weekend. And $300 couldn't even rent a room in those days over there.
So tuition was paid, but none of your living expenses were accounted for.
Nothing was covered, yeah. I remember it was Friday night, and my father was outside. We were into the motel room. My father was outside, kind of leaning in the car, looking into the sunset in the Midwest cornfields. You can imagine that, pulling his eyebrows, which was a sign that he was deeply concerned. But the next day, it was a Saturday, and that's the day we went to church. And so he said, let's go to church. And we went to church. And in the middle of the announcements, there was a little old lady that got up. And she announced that she was looking for a young girl to live with her. I'm going to start crying, I'm sorry. For free. In exchange for just some help around and for company. You should have seen my father's face. It was like he was a new man. And for me, I was like, wow, what an amazing luck. Because at that point, I didn't want anything to do with God.
Your father probably saw it as an answer to prayer.
Oh, absolutely. And now I see it as an answer to prayer, So I was very fortunate. But then through a series of people that were, I went there to get a piano degree, not a singing degree, but I did some singing. But I was highly discouraged by a few people.
Why?
Because I was a very shy singer, and I didn't, use my hands and do the whole thing. And they felt that they told me I wasn't a natural singer.
Oh.
And so it so happened that I was actually getting into a few, recreational drugs as well, and smoking and heavily drinking, and I went kind of downhill pretty fast. And I didn't want to sing anymore anyway, so I stopped singing for about 20 some years.
My.
Yeah, and I smoked for that long.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what brought you back to singing?
My freedom, going out and having my freedom, it eventually brought me to the bottom of the pit, where I was pretty hopeless in my life. I had 2 children by this time. This was about 2000.
Mm-hmm. So they were pretty young.
They were very young. And I was addicted to cigarettes, and I was drinking heavily. I was in a divorce. And I moved to Houston to work with the Houston Ballet there as a pianist for them. Mm-hmm. And my children went with me, but then they hated Houston. They wanted to go back to Seattle and to be with their father. And I was left alone in Houston, without my children, without a job in Seattle. My job was in Houston. And it was a pretty dark time of my life. And at that moment, one day when I was really, really I couldn't even get up. Sorry.
You don't have to be sorry.
God, I know it's God now. At the time, I didn't think it was God. I didn't know. I felt this incredible love. And it lasted about 10 seconds. But I broke up crying. It just filled me with acceptance, and it said, you're okay, I love you, kind of thing,
Wow.
And it was just an overwhelming feeling. And I was transformed. At that point, I was the kind of driver that would swear at everybody else. I was an angry person.
Yeah.
And that all went away. The anger went away, and it was filled with joy.
Wow.
And love for people.
Wow. 10 seconds of total grace.
10 seconds of total grace.
Transformed you.
Transformed me.
And gave you hope.
Yeah, I still didn't believe in God. I didn't know it was God.
What did you think it was?
I don't know. I wasn't thinking. I was just barely surviving at that point.
So Denise, how did you come to know that 10-second blessing was God?
Okay, well, I somehow, by faith, I thought at the time it was my power. I somehow put everything in a truck with a friend, and we drove cross country, and I went back to Seattle without a job, without a place to live. I just knew that I had to do it. It was like my master's, right?
Yeah.
I have to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
Not knowing that God is behind the scenes helping me. But
and God is leading you, and you don't know why.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
And so I got to Seattle, found a place to live, found work, had my children back with me. And a couple of years later, I was in a situation where I was doing some meditation and stuff, and I was told to call my spirit guide. As it turns out, that the spirit guide that came to my help was my father in my mind. I wasn't in a trance or anything. And he told me 3 things. And 2 of them, looking back, I don't believe they were good things. But the 3rd thing was something that only my father would say to me. And he said, and don't forget what Jesus said, come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. After that, I went home and I looked for a Bible. Somebody had given me a Bible, and I started reading it, and it was like, I could not put it down. I just kept reading. I would wake up in the morning, read before the children woke up, get them ready for school, take them to school, get back and read, pick them up from school, if I didn't have to work, make dinner, put them in bed, read. I was like just reading nonstop. And in that process, within 3 weeks, I quit smoking and quit drinking and marijuana, and I didn't do any other drugs. It was just that. Yeah. But it was in excess because the pain was so big that I had to somehow numb it. Yeah. And that gives me great compassion for people that are addicted. Because I know why they're doing it, because I've been there.
So in that time of reading the Bible, I'm curious about your desire for freedom in earlier years, and whether there was a different understanding of what freedom meant as you began to know God.
Definitely. God showed me that freedom is only in Him. And what I had thought was freedom only brought me to the lowest possible place without Him. And so the freedom that I found in God was the freedom to be loved and to love, which before I couldn't do because I had a different idea of who God was. My view of God before that was of a punishing God. And I actually do recall back in those days doing something really bad and having a very bad consequence as a result. And I thought, oh, God is punishing me. Yeah. But when I discovered the real God, I did not find that at all, that God is not that way at all.
So that takes us to the Psalm for this week. So a few weeks ago when you heard that Psalm 50 was the final psalm for our worship series in the season after Epiphany, you jumped at the opportunity because it's a really important psalm in your life, in your faith journey. So can you tell us about the importance of Psalm 50 for you?
Yes, God gave me that psalm in a dream, and this happened at around my when I was reading the Bible and becoming what they call converted, right? So I started reading the Bible in around September, and at Christmas time, the kids and I flew to Toronto to my sister's house. And at that time, I was in a relationship that I knew God was showing me that I needed to get out of it, But I thought I was really in love with this man. And so I remember kneeling by my sister's room. It was empty at the time. I had kneeled by her bed, and I just cried out to God, and I said, "What's wrong with it? I'm so in love, blah blah blah." And so that night, He gave me 2 dreams, and the house was full of people. So I was sleeping on the couch, and the couch was in the living room, and it had a big, just a glass wall kind of thing. And so when I looked up I could see the stars because they were out in the country and there was no light pollution. And I could see the stars, and when I woke up from the first dream, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't believe that this God up there is actually talking to me. And in this dream, he answered my question why he wanted me to move on. And it was very clear why, and it was because he loved me and he wanted the best for me, and this was not going to be the best for me. And so I was just floored that this God is so personal that he is talking directly to me. So I went back to sleep and then had another dream. And in this dream, I was in a pool, clear water, and on the side of the pool were written the words Psalm 50.
Just in case the first dream wasn't clear enough.
I woke up at 6 in the morning right after the dream, and I remember the time because I was like, wow, just the first thing I do is look at the time and get my Bible to see what this psalm is all about.
And what spoke to you in that psalm?
That God was speaking to me. Out of Zion, the perfect in beauty, the Lord shines, right? something like that.
And that's what you saw in the dream.
I saw the psalm in the dream, and then I, of course, tried to read the psalm and understand what he was trying to tell me. And every time I go back to that psalm, I see different things in it.
We only listened to the first 6 verses of the psalm today, and if you carry on and read the psalm, it speaks of a divine judgment. And for some people that feels scary.
Very scary.
But you have a different take on it, don't you?
Yeah, a totally different take on it.
Yeah. Do you want to say some more about that?
Yeah. It goes on to say, what is the point of your sacrifices for me, to me? I own all the animals in the world, so I'm not interested in that stuff. And to me, the message was, I love you. Why do you want to appease me, as if I was this tyrant and you need to sacrifice to me? And to me, that's confirmed by who Jesus Christ is and the message he came to give us. He said, I do not pray to the Father for you because the Father himself loves you. And he told us how much he cares about each little bird, even that falls to the ground. And how much more important are we to him? So when you put the whole thing together, the picture that Jesus gives, which helps us understand the Old Testament, is a picture of this caring being that is intimately connected with us. And that's what I got from my dream, looking up at the sky. I'm so insignificant, so small, and yet he's talking directly to me.
Yeah, and so loved.
It can be
both. We can be very small in the grand scheme of things and still held in God's loving hands.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And because of his love, I'm not insignificant,
Yeah. And so the psalm talks about not needing to bring offerings of animals, but bringing a sacrifice of thanksgiving.
And then it says, call on me in the day of trouble, and I will help you, and then you will glorify me. So
it sounds a lot like what you've just been telling us.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
So, Denise, I came across a quote the other day when I was looking at Psalm 50. It said how we, and this whole idea of God as the divine judge, and how some of us hear that in scary news, not good news.
Yes.
And the quote was, how we receive the news of God's coming judgment depends upon what we know about who is doing the judging. And secondly, who is being judged.
Yes.
And what I've heard you say you've been talking about what you know about the one who is doing the judging.
Yes. If God is a judge at all, he is on our side, right? First of all. But there are a couple of scriptures that indicate that the one being judged is actually God. That's Romans chapter 4, verse 3, I believe.
The one being judged is God. God is judging God's self.
No, we are judging God.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah.
Because, God is absolute. He doesn't change. We know that, right? But our understanding of God is not absolute, right? And we, all of us, one way or another, I believe, the whole human race thinks of God as that judge, tyrant, reward and punishment, forceful, violent God. But from what I believe that Jesus Christ has taught us, he is not. He's totally the opposite. He is freedom-giving. He is pure love, unconditional love. And I believe that God is not violent at all. And so we are judging him. Now, there's something that Jesus said that's really important, and it was, the Father doesn't judge us, or the Father has committed all judgment to Jesus. But then Jesus said, I do not judge you, but my words will judge you in the last day. And so Jesus reveals this non-violent, non-judging God. And his words, if whether we accept them or not, that's what's going to bring judgment to us. In other words, and then you have to get into what's the last day.
Yeah.
But what I believe is that there's coming a day when we are going to be face to face with God. And our concept of him will determine how we react to him. And that to me is the judgment.
When we're looking at love in the face.
Yes, it's going to reveal to us not only who we are, but also who he is. And I believe that when we come face to face with total love, it's going to be very hard on us because we are not total love. And I know that because when I came face to face, so to speak, with God's love, I went through a kind of a judgment where I mourned all the unloving things I had done, especially to my children, as I had used the reward and punishment system on them. I mourned the pain that I caused to them. And there was a moment where I stopped completely using that system and switched to the love system, where even if I lost, I'd be willing to lose rather than use violence against them again. And so what I see happening in the judgment is something similar to that, where, God has forgiven us all of this. But if we don't believe it, then we are self-condemned.
So there's this sense of recognizing God's love and then lamenting, mourning what we have been.
Yes.
Which in some cases leads to transformation.
Yes.
And that I guess what I believe is that God's last word is always grace.
Always.
Always grace.
Always grace.
And the judgment of God allows us to accept that grace.
Yes.
And see where our lives need to be changed.
Yes. And I think I have a very positive outlook for our future of the human race.
Thanks be to God. We need some of that hope and grace right now.
Yeah, I think we're going to go through some dark times, but I believe after that is going to be incredible.
Yeah. Well, may it be so. And so for you, God is not a harsh punishing judge.
No.
But a loving Father.
Yeah. And, later on I remarried, as you know, Ozzy. And
God wanted the best for you.
Yes. And we have a ministry together that really focuses on the two trees in the Garden of Eden, that whole story. And what we have found is that they are extremely significant and they're symbolic, as most of the Bible is very symbolic. In essence, that tree of the knowledge of good and evil is a mixture of good and evil. It's a mixture. And we read that if we ate of it, we would die. While the other tree is the tree of life. There's no mixture in there. And so we can look at God as someone that has a mixed character. And that character would be the reward and punishment, that mixture, the mixture of light and darkness. But in 1 John, it says that God is light in whom there is no darkness at all. And so, to me, that means that God is love, and He's not about reward and punishment, which is really just like a Pavlovian thing, it's conditioning, If you do good, I'll reward you, or I'll give you something good to reward you, so you'll be doing something good. But if you don't do well, I'm going to punish you. And there is no freedom there. And so I've come to see God as completely the God of the tree of life that is not involved in any reward and punishment.
You felt moved to sing this song, and
right.
How can I keep from singing? Mm-hmm. And I have a better understanding now of how you can't not sing. That singing is one way that you offer your thanksgiving to
right.
God. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, is there anything more that you want to say to us today, and maybe about the music video that you've created?
Yes, the music and the words that I put in there. When I started reading the Bible, I had the tendency of just finding and focusing on the verses that really talked about God's love. Because I didn't understand the other stuff yet.
Yeah.
And so those verses really jumped out at me.
Yeah, and there are so many beautiful scripture verses in the Hebrew scriptures about that God of love.
Yes, and we are His, you are mine,
Yeah.
I have redeemed, I have loved you with an everlasting love.
Yeah, those verses from Isaiah 43 are favorites of many people, I think.
Yes, yes.
So we'll see some of those in the music video, some of your favorite scripture verses.
Yes. I wish that the whole world would wake up to the reality that they are loved by God. Because once you know that, and once you feel it, it is healing.
Yeah. And your life is evidence of that. As you've shared your story, what I'm hearing is that you became aware of God holding your life all the time.
All the time.
Even when you were denying God, not interested in God, God was still holding your life.
I look back and I see His work in my life completely.
Yeah. What a beautiful testimony that you shared with us today, and how you have come to know God as just this total love. And
total love.
And in those 10 seconds, a number of years ago, transformed your life and brought you in freedom back to being able to live in the joy of that love and share that love with others. So we are so grateful that we get to benefit from the transformation that God has made in your life.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise.
Thank you.
And I'm so pleased that the congregation gets to have a better sense of who you are as a woman of faith.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. I'm here in my favorite place to sing, in the stairwell of this church where I work. There it is. It has great acoustics, as you can hear. It's really nice. I love acoustics. That's why I love Europe. Singing in those cathedrals, it's so amazing. But we have the stairwell, and that's good enough for me.
keep from singing? While though the tempest loudly roars, I hear the truth it liveth, and though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth, no storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging, since love is Lord of heaven and earth. How can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble in their fear, and hear their death now ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? In prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging, when friends by shame are undefiled. How can I keep from singing?
Hi guys, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe underneath, and also push that little bell so you get a notification anytime we send a new video out. Thank you very much.